may be.
So that's the thing when it comes to, I mean, every operator should have their own way of getting direct bookings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when it comes to having a boutique hotel, you definitely need to invest in your marketing, more so than you would, if you were just an operator just doing OTA. So like,
how do people find out about it?
right,
Marketing.
right.
How do I know?
Exactly. So OTAs are important. You can list each individual room on these OTAs, but having your own system for marketing, having your own reviews on Google, your own GBP profile, and being able to have your own Facebook page and be able to send out your own information so that people can find you. That way, you're not super reliant on the OTAs. Hey, welcome to Uncommon State of Mind, where we debate different ways to leverage your next investment to create time freedom, legacy impact, and generational wealth so you can live that uncommon life. But in order to do that, you must be uncommon. My name is Joey, a.k.a. Mr. J. Mays.
And I'm A.D., also known as A.D. Fly Real Estate.
Yes. So today, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the STR market. There's been certain crackdowns going on in the short-term rental field. Regulations are starting to tighten up, and they're starting to enforce a couple of these stricter rules that are scaring people away from the industry. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So first of all, how do you feel as a short-term rental operator and host with these crackdowns?
To be honest with you, since I got into the game in 2019, I got into it understanding that people don't like you. And you need to be prepared to handle the shit that's going to come your way because you're interrupting business for these hotel industries.
Right. Okay. That's very true because the hotel industry has deep pockets and they will lobby a campaign against whoever tries to hurt those pockets.
Straight up.
But so, one of the big crackdowns that recently, this is actually very recent, was the Airbnb no longer allowing cameras inside of the units. And I know for a lot of investors or a lot of short-term rental hosts and operators, that's a big deal because they do like to reference, the camera if something went wrong or if they believe something went wrong just to see how things went down. So how do you feel about that?
Well, I do most of my business, all of my business actually right now in California. We were never allowed to have cameras inside of units.
Oh, really?
Never.
Okay.
So you can't, in Cali, you can't have cameras inside of units, and you also can't have audio for the recordings that you have for
right.
Yes, right. So
that I know.
Yeah.
That's illegal to have audio recording without.
Exactly. So those two things we already understand, and we already operate with those things in place. So for those of you who are just now joining the party, we've been operating like this for a while. It's nothing that's going to deter your business, or it's definitely not a deal breaker, especially if you have a noise decibel system in your unit, just monitoring the noise in the actual unit. Like we have cameras outside, of course, like doorbell cameras and doorbell Vivint cameras outside that monitor anybody coming in and out, which is mainly all we need. And then we have the noise decibel monitoring system inside that gives us information if the noise reaches a specific level. So with those two systems in place, it's pretty easy for us to navigate and control what's going on in our units. So if you guys are a little weary or scared that you guys have less control, you still have pretty good control if you have the right systems in place.
Right. I actually didn't know that California, you already couldn't do that in Airbnb. But it just now occurred to me that most of the Airbnbs I've stayed in were either out of the country or in another state. But that does kind of blow my mind. So at least that in itself, it does make it clear that somebody can have a short-term rental and without cameras inside and be okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that is cool. But what other kind of regulations or things have you seen that like they're really cracking down on, or maybe not Airbnbs or the OTAs themselves, but maybe just like as far as like law or governments coming into play?
Yeah.
To
There's definitely been a lot more regulation in general of the short-term rental space, which once again, it's a double-edged sword, because it's good. The more that the government can regulate and find ways to tax something, the more it's going to be allowed for the general public.
right.
The government only cares if they don't know how to tax it.
The government is the biggest gangsters. Biggest gangsters of the world.
That part.
That's the real concept.
Yeah, they only care if they don't know how to tax it. Once they figure out how to tax something, oh, you're free to do whatever you please. You feel me? So,
no marijuana. Get Schedule 1 or whatever they call it.
Right.
One drug.
Yeah.
And now it's like, reducing money, and they're cool.
That
all of a sudden, like, I guess they don't care no more.
Exactly. So that's the main thing. So, once again, once the government finds a way to tax it, it's you're usually going to be just fine. And the industry, it's one of those things which I've talked about before. It's inevitable. Like the fact that people can find alternative places to stay outside of the traditional hotel. People like that. People are starting to prefer that, and you can see shifts in the numbers of people choosing Airbnb over hotels, which is why hotels lobby so hard to, enforce regulations or find ways to ban Airbnbs in specific cities, because it's definitely hurting their bottom line. So what they've done is either try to find ways to outlaw it, or they try to find ways to engage in it. As you see, like Hilton Hotel has like their line of like STR type of properties that they're.
Yeah, I've actually seen that a lot, where like hotels will have pretty much mixed, they have units that they put on their own website. Yeah. Units they put on like OTAs. I mean, those short-term rental. Actually, where was I? In Mexico. Yeah, in Cancun last year. We stayed at the hotel the wedding was at, but we also had an Airbnb, and the Airbnb was a situation like that where it was in a condominium building, or maybe an apartment complex. It was like a luxury complex, but yeah, they were renting out unit for short-term rental purposes. I was like,
right. So, and that's the thing with hotel brands that have the cash to do that, they can go ahead and transition to building out their next of units doing that. But for the other industries, or not the industries, but the other hotel chains that, have so many properties already built out, and they don't want to, shift over to a short-term rental or options that mimic more of what Airbnb and VRBO offer, they're going to lobby as hard as they can to make sure that they can, keep up their bottom line. So that's always going to happen. You know what I mean? So we're not too worried about it, but you need to be ready for it. You need to be ready for the harsher regulations. You need to make sure that all your ducks in a row and you're jumping through all the hoops that you need to in order to operate, because it's still very lucrative, especially if you're operating in the right cities and markets.
That's cool. So, one person I've heard talk about, short-term rentals a lot is Rich Summers. He has a podcast I love listening to, the Summers Report, and a lot of good real estate info on there. But so he was doing a lot of short-term rentals previously. Now he started a fund where they invest in boutique hotels.
Okay.
So, and he talks a lot about how he believes that's the natural progression for a short-term rental operator. Start off with short-term rentals and then build your way up to being able to purchase and operate a boutique hotel, because there's transferable skills. Obviously, you're already in the hospitality game. One cool thing that he said is that they only invest in vacation areas in blue states. And by blue states, he means traditionally Democratic-led state, liberal states. And his reasoning behind that is that vacation areas in a blue state, he feels that they will do less to stop you from being able to have short-term rentals, whereas in a lot of more red states, they're doing their best to make sure, short-term rentals don't drive up the housing market for the people who actually live there, as well as he had another point, just pretty much that they will be in red states. He believes they will be quicker to like tighten regulations, and then also he invests around near or around metro.
Yeah.
So, which I think that's genius too, you know, for long-term, short-term, any term, you know, of investing in or around a metro. So for yourself, do you see anything like that where, because I mean, you're in and around LA right now, so it's like, you know what I mean? You really don't have as much of a need, but do you see that? I know all your units, unless I'm mistaken, all your units are in and around LA area, right?
Close. Yeah. So, and there's definitely a difference between the short-term rentals that I have that are closer to LA and the short-term rentals that I have in the outskirts or the suburbs of LA. There's definitely a difference in price point. There's definitely a difference in occupancy. So, but yeah, for sure, I do like that. I do like what what's his name? Rich Summers was talking about, because that is a natural progression, is boutique hotels. And to be honest with you, that's been a big talking point within the short-term rental community for about a year and some change now. People transitioning to boutique hotels, because then you get around a lot of the jargon and kind of the regulation that you'll get if you were just a regular single family homeowner.
Right.
You can kind of, you have this whole entire operating, this entire building dedicated to boutique hotels. So it's kind of, you don't get as much pushback from
You're already probably in a commercial zone.
Exactly.
So you don't have to worry about the residential aspect of fighting against you.
So that's one thing. But what I do know for a fact is, even though there's a lot of skills that are transferable to from already being hospitality and doing short-term rentals, there are still a lot of skills that you need to acquire in order to transition to run an entire facility with multiple doors. You know what I mean? Because then you have to also think more of a traditional. You have to think more turnover for sure. You have to think of hiring like a full-time staff,
real staff.
You know what I'm saying? To actually help run the property in some ways. There's definitely a learning curve from short-term rentals to boutique hotels. At least that's what I've heard from the folks that talk about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. I don't want to talk about this as if this is something that I have a lot of knowledge on, but, just someone who listens to stuff about real estate all the time.
Yeah.
In that aspect, one thing I've seen or heard was, they would find a property and buy it undervalued.
Of course.
For one, which is the best way to buy any asset, honestly. But then beyond that, they already know which ways they can improve it and or have most of that staff in place.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. Like one of the examples was this property, it was on the market for under like less than it was worth. But he went, like he did a mystery shop, pretty much went to the property, and then the property was underperforming, not making a lot of money. When he got to the property, he sees that the front desk clerk was rude to everybody. So it's like, okay, well, maybe if I remove her, the property will make as much as it needs to make.
Yeah.
He bought the property undervalued. Obviously he got rid of her, and then now the property is making more than the evaluation because, all right, so real quick, if you don't know, when you're buying commercial property, it's not just a matter of, oh, it's got 3 bedrooms, so let's compare it to that house that has 3 bedrooms. Right, like that. Buying commercial property is strictly based off of the income capable off of that property. That's really how it works. Or a commercial loan.
Yeah.
It's based off the income of the property. So for him, he bought it undervalued based on the income that it was producing, and he severely boosted up the income.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's really probably one of the best ways to go about it. Starting at a point where, oh, maybe I can buy from a mom and pop, or from a legacy owner, or what's that generation that they're all about to retire?
Boomers?
I could buy from a baby boomer who doesn't feel like owning it anymore, and their kids don't want to own it or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So like there's all kinds of opportunities to look at and find to just to keep it going.
And what you just said, a short-term rental operator, and also he has his own podcast as well. His name is Mike Sjogren. Mike Sjogren, he owns and operates short-term rentals, and he also does boutique hotels. He actually has a case study on his website of him taking over a boutique hotel from the jump. Of course, it was undervalued. He obviously did a bunch of renovations and had rented the place out, and he his ROI was insane.
Right.
So I'll go ahead and definitely shout out Mike Sjogren for that, and I'll probably see if I can find an episode of his if he's talking about that in one of his podcasts. But he does great with that type of work. He's definitely in that boutique hotel space. But it's definitely possible. It's being done more often than not nowadays, because that's definitely the next progression for people who have been operating successfully for a while in the short-term rental field. You know what I mean?
It makes sense, because if you think of some of these hotels, especially the ones that they're like just legacy location, they might not even be online, or they might be online, but they don't maximize their online capabilities, or SEO marketing is trash, or whatever it may be.
So that's the thing when it comes to, I mean, every operator should have their own way of getting direct bookings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when it comes to having a boutique hotel, you definitely need to invest in your marketing, more so than you would, if you were just an operator just doing OTAs. So like,
how do people find out about it?
Right.
Marketing.
Right.
How do I know?
Exactly. So OTAs are important. You can list each individual room on these OTAs, but having your own system for marketing, having your own reviews on Google, your own GBP profile, and being able to have your own Facebook page, and be able to send out your own information so that people can find you. That way you're not super reliant on the OTAs, because I can guarantee you, if you go into boutique hotels and you think that you're just going to toss your units on OTAs and you're going to get great ROI, it's not going to work. It's not going to work out. It's not going to work out that way. You definitely need to improve your direct booking strategies and make sure you have your own strategies in place. And you really want, and this goes for any operator. This goes for even if you are just running a single family home and you're operating that way, or maybe you are a short-term rental manager and you have multiple units. You definitely need to have your own system of acquiring customers, and because you don't want to be over relying on the OTAs. That's for you. You don't want it.
Single business.
Having your own.
Everybody. I don't care if it's a side hustle, if you're a service-based business, if you're a gig or whatever it is, you want to find a way to, one, start attracting your own customers, and then two, stay in contact with customers you pick up.
Yeah.
So let's say, okay, maybe you did gain a customer through social media and you needed this platform, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, whatever it may be, TikTok.
Yeah.
Like maybe you did need the platform to get that customer, but now you need to get that info so that you can stay in contact with the customer.
Yeah.
Like that's every single kind of business. You need to be doing that.
And to be honest with you, like being that I started back in 2019, in the beginning, I thought this was just an investment that I could put together and run and let it run on its own. But there's a lot of work that goes into staying relevant and keeping the same return on investment, or keeping the same nights booked. There's a lot of, especially as the market changes and things kind of like, the correction happens in the market. I talked in the other episode how, the correction in the market is kind of happening now, where the, overall occupancy level for short-term rentals is around 55%. But of course, we saw extrapolated numbers. Now that we're getting back to those normal numbers of maybe 55% occupancy industry-wide, people are seeing the effects of that. People are feeling the effects of that. So with that being said, having your own systems in regards to marketing and having your own system in regards to client acquisition and understanding lifetime value of a client that's, booked with you before, and finding ways to keep them booking over and over again, it's no longer optional. It's a necessity.
So yeah, and like one of the things you said right there, the lifetime value,
Yeah.
which I don't know if most of our listeners understand that this is something a lot of businesses talk about, the lifetime value of a customer or of a client, because what it is you don't want for the first transaction to be the only transaction they have with you. And you want a way for them to come back and either take advantage of that same product or to have other products that you can upsell them on. Either one works, but it's best when you can double dip off of the same customer.
Right.
Because now one customer turned into two customers, and that's just more cash flow, you know what I mean, for your business.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another aspect to think about, where the lifetime value, which is why you want to have the ability to stay in contact with these people who you do come across, who do purchase from you, because you want them to be a customer again. And on top of that, you want them to tell their friends to go be a customer too. You know what I mean? Like, oh, hey, mom, you guys are going to Lake Tahoe? Well, I stayed in this dope place in Lake Tahoe. All right, you stay there too. Here's the link. He just emailed me last week. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
Staying top of market, staying top of mind, you know what I'm saying, is huge, because who knows? And that's what happens. You know, you're chilling, and then you stay somewhere before, and a few months pass, all of a sudden you get a random email. They have a deal like, oh, 10% off if I go back. I'm about to go there in a couple of weeks. Let me
Well, good enough. I got a good enough. I mean, I went to the little lounge spot after. I did my thing in the lounge. So I'm going back.
So that's to circle back. Like, that's what regulation has done. Regulation has made it harder for operators to operate, or operators to sustain business in their locations without, jumping through specific hoops. On top of that, the economic climate is changing, and there's more that you need to do in the short-term rental market in order to stay relevant to consumers or relevant to potential guests. So it's just being able to stay on top of these things and understanding what's going on in your local market that's going to, possibly affect you, and being on top of it, as I said, being on top of it, and making sure that you run more like a business and not just somebody who has an Airbnb.
Yeah, because those are the people who are going to get clipped off first.
Yeah.
And fasted. Quick.
Yeah.
Running it like it's just an extra thing to do. Those are the ones that are going to fall off. The people who are doing their best to make it a real business and operate as such, those are the ones who are going to stick. That's why the people like Joey are concerned, because he's running a business. He's not just picking up a couple extra every month when he goes out of town. You know what I mean? Like, the people who are just picking up a couple extra when they go out of town, they might be okay because it's not something they're looking for as real money, but they're definitely going to feel the effects when they're going up against people who are running businesses.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just, you can't compare it. And you probably can't compare the experience either. People who are running businesses are making sure that the clients, the guests, that's what you guys call them, right? Guests, that the guests are getting a good experience, because like he just said, he's trying to get them to come back. And so, I mean, like, I just want to hit on that a lot, because everybody who wants to do a short-term rental, I come across a lot of people who are like, yeah, I think I want to do short-term rentals. I want to do Airbnbs. Like, it's a business. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I just want for all of you to be aware of that before you just go out there and do this and you treat it like it's just a side thing. Right. It's not a side thing.
No, yeah, we had, and with the people that I've been partnered with, we went into this as investors. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
We got into this as investors. So seeing our numbers change and seeing our occupancy levels change and seeing our revenue per available listing, RevPAR change, we're like, okay, we need to do more in order to either get, new clients coming in, or more to rebook past guests, because unless we have systems in place to go ahead and take care of one of the two or both, we're going to be drowning. We're going to be drowning. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to be drowning. So, that's things that there's things that have already been in place in my company, and there's things because I have a couple of different companies, but there's things that we're putting back in place in order to make sure that happens, and it's super important to do that now. You know what I mean? So, That's pretty much all I got right now, man.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, you know what? We should definitely do some more of these every now and then, just some STR check-in.
Oh yeah, man.
Check-in.
Definitely.
We kind of do, but
Yeah.
let's make a point of it.
Yeah.
Because I think it is important because this is a whole field of real estate that it's been around for hundreds of years, to be honest, but it just became a focal point in the last 5 to 10.
Yeah.
You know, 5 to 15 maybe.
Yes.
But it really just now started becoming a real thing. So, you know, this is something that I'm glad Joey does because it helps me get more knowledge and we could talk about it. And at the end of the day, short-term rentals affect long-term rentals. And you may not understand how, but when short-term rentals drive up the prices of properties because people know they can make more money off of them, it now affects you as a long-term rental owner or operator. So these are things to think about. You want to kind of have an idea of what's going on in all aspects of real estate in some degree. Yeah.
Big time. No, big time, because honestly, like there's, you know, and people like to, you know, think that certain markets aren't really, they don't correlate to each other or things of that nature, where like, no, like everything in the economy really correlates to each other. Like the only way, like if the world were to stop today, obviously the market's going to crash, right?
Right.
Because it's correlated to some sort of movement, it's correlated to some sort of activity. So the fact that they're not directly correlated doesn't mean that they still don't move cohesively in the same direction somehow, some way.
It's stock market and crypto conversation. Like when stock market's booming, a lot of times you'll see crypto booming at the same time and vice versa.
And even if there is a little bit of deviation, you know, there's still, if you look at the broader scope, there's still a positive correlation in them doing the same. You know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things where you definitely, it's good to be informed and it's good to know, like, if you needed to pivot, you know how to. So it's great to have a conversation like this. Yeah. So if I had to be for today, man, it's be well-rounded. Be well-rounded in, you know, different aspects of investing. Especially if you're taking advantage of short-term rentals or you want to be a long-term investor, understanding how to pivot, understanding each market, even though you may not exactly be invested in a specific market, but just knowing maybe just the bare bones, it just prepares you for whatever comes your way if the economy were to ever change and you needed to do something different in order to sustain.
Right. And just to add on that real quick, you don't necessarily need to be as knowledgeable as the experts in that specific field, but you do need to be knowledgeable enough to know how that field affects your field. And I think that's what Joey's trying to say. So, as the man said, be well-rounded, be you, and be confident. Till there time.